The servant halls were where you went when your own blood discarded you. And as Carenza knelt scrubbing stone floors while nobles passed without seeing her, she kept her hands hidden beneath thick wool gloves. Always the gloves. Always the secret. Because beneath that fabric lay the silver marks that would condemn her to death. She was a soul binder, the last of a forbidden bloodline, and if anyone discovered what she truly was, she would burn just as her mother had. So when the Alpha King's prized war horse collapsed in the great courtyard, poisoned and dying, Carenza should have looked away. She should have let the beast die. She didn't. Her hands moved before her mind could stop them. She touched the creature, and the entire court fell silent. Hundreds of wolves watched as silver light rippled beneath her skin, as the horse drew breath and rose. Then the Alpha King himself stood before her, Thandor, conqueror of the eastern realms, the wolf whose very presence made seasoned warriors kneel. He looked at her with eyes that held no warmth, only calculation. "You will come with me," he said. He offered her protection, position, marriage itself. He swore to keep her secret safe, to shield her from the execution she deserved, but only under one condition. He would never love her. He would never allow her close to his heart. Carenza didn't understand why. Not until she discovered the curse slowly killing him from within. Not until she realized her forbidden gift was the only thing that could save him. And not until it was far, far too late to stop herself from falling. The great hall of Valdros had witnessed coronations, treaties, and the fall of dynasties. Tonight, it witnessed something far more common: the disposal of unwanted wolves. Carenza kept her head bowed as the steward read the list of servants to be reassigned. Reassigned, a polite word for sold to the highest bidder among the lesser lords who always needed cheap labor for their estates. She stood at the back of the line, behind the aging footmen and the scullery maids who had grown too slow for the palace kitchens. Invisible, forgettable. Exactly as she intended. Her gloves were thick today, double-layered. The marks had been restless lately, pulsing beneath her skin as though sensing something she could not name. She pressed her palms flat against her thighs and willed them silent. "Carenza Vance," the steward called without looking up. "Former chamber attendant, suitable for household labor. Starting bid." A commotion at the far doors cut him short. The massive oak panels burst inward, and 4 soldiers rushed through carrying what appeared to be a collapsed shadow between them. It took Carenza a moment to understand what she was seeing. A horse, the largest she had ever encountered. Zephyros. Even servants knew that name. The Alpha King's legendary warhorse, a beast so fierce it had trampled enemy battalions and so loyal it slept outside the king's chambers. Black as midnight with a mane like smoke, Zephyros was worth more than entire provinces. And he was dying. The soldiers laid him on the stone floor, and Carenza saw the foam at his mouth, the wild roll of his eyes, the violent tremors shaking his massive frame. "Poison!" someone shouted. "The water trough! Someone poisoned the water trough!" Noble wolves scattered backward as though death itself might be contagious. The royal physician rushed forward, took one look at the convulsing animal, and shook his head. "There is nothing to be done, my lords. The poison has reached his heart. He has minutes at most." A ripple passed through the crowd, not of grief, but of fear. Because everyone knew what this horse meant to the king, and everyone knew what the king did to those who failed him. The marks beneath Carenza's gloves burned white-hot. No. She pressed her fists tighter. No, no, no. She could feel the horse's agony as though it were her own. Every spasm of his muscles, every desperate beat of his failing heart echoed through her bones. The soulbinder gift did not ask permission, it simply demanded. Save him. She couldn't. Using her power here, in front of the entire court, that was suicide. Her mother had been dragged to the pyre for less. Carenza had spent 23 years hiding what she was. She would not throw her life away for a horse, even a king's horse. Save him. Zephyros screamed. The sound was almost human, raw with terror and pain. His hooves scraped uselessly against the stone as his body arched in agony. The marks erupted. Before Carenza understood what she was doing, she had pushed through the crowd. Her knees hit the cold floor beside the dying beast, her gloved hands pressed against his neck. "What is she doing?" someone demanded. "Get that servant away from—" She pulled off her gloves. Silver light blazed from her palms, threading through the horse's dark coat like lightning through storm clouds. She felt the poison, a thick black corruption wrapped around his heart, and she burned it away. She felt his failing lungs, drowning in fluid, and she drew the sickness out through her own breath. The great hall fell absolutely silent. Not a whisper, not a gasp. 300 wolves stood frozen as a ragged servant girl held a dying warhorse and poured impossible light into his veins. Zephyros shuddered once, twice. Then he drew a deep, clear breath. His wild eyes calmed, his trembling ceased. Slowly, impossibly, the legendary beast rose to his feet. He turned his great head toward Carenza and pressed his nose gently against her cheek. She heard it then. A voice that was not a voice. A feeling that pressed into her mind with ancient warmth. "Thank you, little healer." Tears streamed down her face. Her hands were bare, the silver marks glowing bright against her skin for everyone to see. She had just signed her own death warrant. "Soulbinder," the royal physician breathed. "By the gods, she's a soulbinder." The whispers exploded like fire through dry grass. "Soulbinder. Impossible. They were exterminated. Kill her. Seize her. Call the executioner." Guards moved toward her, swords drawn. Carenza closed her eyes. At least the horse would live. At least she had done one good thing before she died. "Stop." The single word cut through the chaos like a blade through silk. The guards froze. The whispers died. Every head in the great hall turned toward the figure descending from the raised throne platform. Alpha King Thandor of House Valdros. Carenza had never seen him this close. She had glimpsed him from servant corridors, a distant golden figure wreathed in power. But now he stood 3 feet away, and she understood why kingdoms trembled at his name. He was tall, taller than any wolf she had encountered, with hair the color of dark bronze and eyes like molten amber. But it was not his beauty that stole her breath. It was the weight of him. The sheer, crushing presence that pressed against her chest and made her wolf whimper in submission. Those amber eyes fixed on her glowing hands, on the silver marks that damned her. The court held its breath, waiting for the execution order. Instead, the Alpha King spoke 5 words that changed everything. "This woman belongs to me." The king's private study was smaller than Carenza expected. Shelves lined the walls, heavy with books and scrolls. A fire burned low in the hearth despite the summer warmth. Maps covered the desk, weighted down with daggers and goblets. And standing before the window, his back to her, was the man who now apparently owned her. Carenza's wrists were unbound. The guards had escorted her here without chains, without violence, which confused her more than cruelty would have. Soulbinders were monsters. Everyone knew this. They corrupted wolves, controlled beasts, bent nature itself to their will. She should already be ash. "You saved my horse," Thandor said without turning. His voice was deep, measured, and empty of any emotion she could name. "Yes, Your Majesty." "You revealed yourself to do so. You knew the consequences." Carenza swallowed. "I was not thinking, Your Majesty. My instincts." "Your instincts." He turned then, and she flinched at the intensity of his gaze. "Your instincts compelled you to expose a secret you have clearly protected for years. For a horse, either you are remarkably foolish or remarkably selfless." She had no answer for that. Thandor crossed the room slowly, his footsteps silent on the thick carpet. He stopped an arm's length away, close enough that she could smell him. Pine and smoke and something colder beneath. Something that reminded her inexplicably of winter. "How long have you hidden this gift?" he asked. "My whole life, Your Majesty." "And your mother? She was also a soulbinder?" The words hit like a physical blow. Carenza's hands clenched at her sides. "She was executed when I was 7. Burned in the square at Thornwick while my father watched." Something flickered in those amber eyes, not sympathy, something sharper. "Yet you survived." "My father told the magistrates I was ungifted, that the bloodline had skipped me." Her voice hardened despite herself. "He was very convincing." "And he has kept your secret all these years out of fatherly love?" The bitter laugh escaped before she could stop it. "My father despises me, Your Majesty. He kept my secret because my exposure would taint his name. A Vance producing 2 soulbinders in 1 generation would make his bloodline suspect. He would lose his lands, his titles, everything." Thandor studied her for a long moment. Then he walked to his desk, poured wine from a crystal decanter, and drank deeply. He did not offer her any. "I have a proposition for you, Carenza Vance." The use of her full name startled her. Servants were not addressed so formally. "Your Majesty, you face execution. The law is clear on soulbinders. By dawn tomorrow, my council will demand your death, and I will have little choice but to grant it." He set down his goblet. "Unless," Carenza's heart hammered, "unless? Unless you become untouchable. Unless your death would cause more problems than your life." She did not understand. "How?" Thandor turned to face her fully, and for the first time she saw something beyond cold calculation in his expression. Something almost like desperation, quickly hidden. "You will marry me." The words did not make sense. She replayed them in her mind, certain she had misheard. "Your Majesty, as my queen, you will be protected by laws older than the soulbinder purges. Executing a crowned queen would require dissolving the monarchy itself. Not even my council would risk that." Carenza's legs threatened to give way. "You would marry a servant? A soulbinder? Your people would riot." "My people will do as they are told." His voice was ice. "And you are not the monster the old stories claim. I watched you save Zephyros." You wept as you healed him. Monsters do not weep. Something warm and terrifying bloomed in her chest. She crushed it immediately. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this for me? You do not know me. You owe me nothing." Thandor was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was lower, rougher. "I have my reasons. You do not need to know them. What you need to know is this." He stepped closer, and Carenza's breath caught. "I will protect you. I will give you titles and lands and more wealth than you could spend in 10 lifetimes. I will ensure no one ever threatens you again." "In exchange for what?" "Your discretion. Your obedience in public matters. Your silence about whatever you may observe in this marriage." His jaw tightened. "And your acceptance of one condition." Carenza waited. "I will never love you." The words were flat, final. "I am incapable of it. Do not expect affection, companionship, or warmth from me. You will be my queen in name and law. Nothing more. Can you accept that?" She should refuse. This was madness. A trap. Something she did not understand. A king did not marry servants. A king did not protect soulbinders. But then she thought of the alternative. The pyre. The flames. Her mother's screams echoing through her childhood nightmares. Cold over death, she thought. "I will choose cold over death every time." "I accept, Your Majesty." Something shifted in Thandor's expression. Relief? Guilt? It vanished before she could name it. "The wedding will take place in 3 days. You will be given chambers, attendants, appropriate clothing. You will speak to no one about the terms of this arrangement. Carenza nodded, her mind spinning. Thandor walked past her toward the door. He paused with his hand on the handle. One more thing. She turned. My wolf, he said quietly, is dying. Before she could respond, he was gone. The chambers they gave her were larger than her father's entire manor house. Carenza stood in the center of the receiving room, afraid to touch anything. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured rainbows across silk wallpaper. Velvet furniture in deep burgundy clustered around a marble fireplace. Through an arched doorway, she glimpsed a canopied bed so vast it could have slept 6. This was a queen's suite, and she was a scrubbing girl with death glowing in her veins. Your attendants will arrive within the hour, my lady. Carenza startled. The elderly woman who had escorted her here stood by the door, her expression carefully neutral. My lady, Carenza repeated. The words felt foreign on her tongue. You are to be queen, my lady. The address is appropriate. The woman's gaze flickered to Carenza's bare hands. The silver marks had faded to faint tracery, barely visible. I am Odessa. I served the previous queen before her passing. I will serve you now. The previous queen? King Thandor's mother. She died 8 years ago, when His Majesty was 23. Odessa's voice softened slightly. He has ruled alone since then, refused every bride his council proposed. There have been rumors. Carenza's stomach tightened. What kind of rumors? But Odessa only shook her head. It is not my place, my lady. Your attendants will answer what questions they can. I recommend rest before the council convenes. She left before Carenza could ask anything more. Alone, Carenza sank onto one of the velvet chairs. Her hands were trembling. She pressed them flat against her thighs, a gesture so habitual she barely noticed it anymore. My wolf is dying. Why had he told her that? What did it mean? Alpha wolves did not simply die. They were the strongest of their kind, blessed with vitality that lasted centuries. And Thandor was in his prime, barely past 30 summers, ruling an empire that spanned 3 mountain ranges and 2 seas. His wolf could not be dying. It made no sense. Unless it was not natural. Unless it was something else. Something like... A sharp knock interrupted her thoughts. Enter, she called, still unused to giving commands. The door swung open, and Carenza's blood turned to ice. Her father stood in the doorway. Aldrich Vance had aged since she last saw him. More silver threaded his dark hair, more lines carved his stern face. But his eyes were the same, cold, assessing, filled with contempt he did not bother to hide. Behind him stood her sister, Malis. Leave us, Aldrich commanded the guards flanking the door. They hesitated, glancing at Carenza. It's all right, she managed. They are my family. The word tasted like poison. The guards withdrew. The door closed. And Carenza was alone with the man who had watched her mother burn and called it justice. Father. Her voice was steady. I did not expect you. I imagine not. Aldrich stepped into the room, his gaze sweeping across the opulent furnishings with barely concealed greed. Though I confess equal surprise. When I sent you to the servant halls, I expected you to disappear quietly. Perhaps die of some illness. Perhaps simply be forgotten. Sorry to disappoint. His hand moved faster than she could track. The slap cracked across her cheek, snapping her head sideways. You will not speak to me with that tone. Aldrich's voice was calm, measured. You may be wearing silk, but you are still the stain on my bloodline, the reminder of your mother's corruption. Carenza tasted blood. She did not flinch. The king has chosen me, she said quietly. I am to be queen. The king is making a mistake. Aldrich leaned closer, his breath hot against her face. And when he realizes what you truly are, what you can truly do, he will cast you aside. Or worse, He knows what I am. He saw the marks. He does not care. Something flickered in her father's eyes. Fear? No, that was impossible. Aldrich Vance feared nothing. Then he is a fool, her father hissed. And you will destroy him just as your mother destroyed this family. Mother destroyed nothing. The words came out harder than she intended. You destroyed her. You stood and watched while they burned her alive. Aldrich smiled. The expression was terrible. I did what was necessary, just as I have always done what was necessary. He straightened, adjusting his coat. Enjoy your brief elevation, daughter. It will not last. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Milas has something to say to you. Sister to sister. His smile widened. I will wait outside. The door closed behind him, and Carenza was left facing the sister she had not spoken to in 6 years. Milas was beautiful. She had always been beautiful. Golden hair, delicate features, the perfect omega that society adored. She wore a gown of pale green that matched her eyes, and her expression held none of their father's cruelty. It held something worse. Pity. Carenza, Melis said softly. You need to refuse him. Refuse the king? You do not understand what you are walking into. Melis stepped closer, her voice urgent. There are rumors about him, Carenza. Terrible rumors. Wolves who served him closely have disappeared. His own mother died under mysterious circumstances. Some say his wolf is cursed, that he is not fully himself. Carenza thought of Thandor's strange coldness, the winter she had sensed beneath his skin. My wolf is dying. And what does any of this have to do with me? Everything. Milas gripped her hands, and Carenza fought not to pull away. You are a soulbinder. You heal wolves, connect with them. What if that is why he chose you? What if he means to use you to fix whatever is wrong with him? Would that be so terrible? If I could help him? Milas's expression hardened. And when you cannot? When your gift is not enough? What do you think he will do to the wife who failed him? The question hung between them. I survived, father, Carenza said finally. I survived the servant halls. I will survive this. Our mother thought she could survive too. Melis's voice cracked. She thought her gift made her special, protected. And they burned her anyway. Tears stung Carenza's eyes. She blinked them back. Why do you care, Melis? You have not spoken to me in 6 years. You stood beside father at every function and pretended I did not exist. Her sister looked away. Because you frightened me. Because I believed what father said about you, about what you might become. She swallowed hard. But watching you save that horse today, seeing your face as you healed him. You wept, Carenza. You wept for a dying animal. Monsters do not weep. The same words Thandor had used. The coincidence made Carenza's skin prickle. What are you saying? I am saying I was wrong. Milas met her eyes. I am saying that perhaps father has been lying to us both for a very long time, and I am saying... She paused, something like fear crossing her delicate features. I am saying be careful. Do not trust the king. Do not trust father. And whatever you do... She leaned close, her whisper barely audible. Do not let anyone discover what else you can do. What mother could do. The thing father fears most of all. Before Carenza could ask what she meant, Melis pulled back, her expression smoothing into polite neutrality. I should go. Father is waiting. She swept toward the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a breath. Mother did not just heal wolves, Carenza. She could see their souls, see everything they were hiding. Every secret. Every lie. Melis glanced back, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. If you can do the same, if the king is hiding something, you might be the only one who can discover what it is. The door closed behind her. Carenza stood frozen, her heart pounding, her mother's screams echoing through her memory. What else could she do? And what was the Alpha King truly hiding? The morning of her wedding, Carenza woke to chaos. Seamstresses invaded her chambers before dawn, their arms laden with silk and lace and more fabric than she had seen in her entire life. They measured her, pinned her, adjusted and readjusted until she felt less like a bride and more like a dressmaker's mannequin. The gown they created was magnificent. Deep emerald velvet that cascaded to the floor, embroidered with silver thread in patterns that seemed to shift when she moved. A high collar concealed her throat. Long sleeves covered her arms to the wrists, and gloves. Delicate white gloves that hid the silver marks completely. His Majesty's orders, Odessa explained when Carenza questioned them. No one will see your hands today. No one will be reminded of what you are. He was protecting her. Even now, even in this small detail, Thandor was shielding her from the court's hatred. The warmth that bloomed in her chest was dangerous. She crushed it immediately. The Cathedral of Valdros had stood for 1,000 years. Its spires pierced the clouds, and its stained glass windows depicted the founding wolves in battle against the ancient darkness. Today, every pew was filled with nobility who had traveled from across the realm to witness the impossible. An Alpha King marrying a servant, a soulbinder. Carenza felt their stares as she walked the endless aisle alone. No father to escort her, no family to stand behind her. Just 300 wolves watching with expressions ranging from curiosity to disgust to outright fear. Whispers slithered through the crowd. They say she controlled the horse. Soulbinders can corrupt wolves, make them do terrible things. Why would His Majesty risk it? Perhaps she has already corrupted him. Carenza kept her eyes fixed forward, on the altar where Thandor waited. He wore black. The formal military uniform emphasized the breadth of his shoulders, the hard planes of his chest. Gold medals gleamed against the dark fabric. A ceremonial sword hung at his hip. He looked every inch the conqueror, cold, untouchable, magnificent. And his eyes never left her face. The ceremony began. The high priest's voice echoed through the vast space, reciting vows older than the kingdom itself. Carenza barely heard the words. She was too aware of Thandor beside her, the strange coolness that seemed to radiate from his skin despite the summer heat. Then the priest paused. "Before the bonding may proceed," he announced, his voice carrying to every corner. "Tradition demands proof of the bride's worthiness. She must demonstrate that she poses no threat to her alpha, to his wolf, or to the realm." Carenza's blood chilled. No one had mentioned this. From the crowd, a voice rang out, her father's voice. "The bride is a soulbinder, Your Holiness, a wielder of forbidden magic. The traditional test must be administered. She must prove she cannot corrupt wolves." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the cathedral. Carenza saw the trap closing around her. The traditional test. She had heard of it, whispered in servant quarters. A soulbinder was forced to touch a wolf in their shifted form while the court watched. If the wolf showed any sign of corruption, any unusual behavior, the soulbinder was executed on the spot. But the test was designed to fail. The very presence of a soulbinder's gift created a connection with wolves. Any reaction would be interpreted as corruption. "The test will not be necessary." Thandor's voice cut through the murmurs like a blade. He stepped forward, positioning himself between Carenza and the crowd. "Your Majesty," the priest began uncertainly, "the tradition was created to protect alphas from soulbinder manipulation." Thandor's amber eyes swept across the assembly, and Carenza saw wolves flinch beneath that gaze. "I am the Alpha King. If anyone in this realm can resist such manipulation, it is me." He turned to Carenza. For a moment, something flickered in his expression. Then, before the entire court, the Alpha King of Valdros did something that had not been done in 500 years. He knelt. Gasps echoed through the cathedral. Nobles rose from their seats in shock. Even the priest stumbled backward. An Alpha did not kneel. An Alpha King especially did not kneel. Not to anyone. Not for any reason. Yet Thandor knelt before her, his head bowed, his throat exposed in the ultimate gesture of submission. "Touch me," he commanded quietly. "Remove your gloves and touch me. Let them see that your gift holds no power over me." Carence's hands trembled. "Your Majesty, you do not have to. I want them to see." His voice was rough. "I want them to understand that I chose this, that I chose you, that no magic compelled me." Slowly, her heart pounding so loudly she was certain the entire cathedral could hear it, Carenza pulled off her gloves. The silver marks blazed against her skin, visible to everyone. More gasps, more whispers. But no one moved. No one dared, not with their king kneeling at her feet. She reached out and placed her bare palm against Thandor's cheek. The connection was instantaneous. She felt his wolf, vast and powerful, like standing at the edge of a frozen ocean. But beneath that power, she sensed something else. Something wrong. A darkness wrapped around his wolf's heart, squeezing slowly, stealing breath and life and warmth. His wolf was dying, not from poison or injury, from something far worse, a curse. Carence's breath caught. She saw more than she intended, flashes of memory that were not her own. A woman with Thandor's amber eyes weeping over an ancient book. A ritual circle drawn in blood. A child screaming as ice crawled through his veins. His mother. His mother had done something to him. Something terrible. Then Thandor's hand closed over hers, breaking the connection. "Enough," he said softly, for her ears alone. His eyes held a warning. And something else. Fear? He rose to his feet, turning to face the court. His voice rang with absolute authority. "You have seen. Her gift holds no power over me. The wedding will proceed." No one argued. No one dared. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur. Vows were exchanged. Rings were placed on fingers. The priest declared them bonded. Then Thandor cupped her face in his cold hands and pressed his lips to her forehead. The kiss was brief, chaste, but infinitely tender. "You are safe now," he murmured against her skin. "No one will ever hurt you again." The court erupted in polite applause, but Carenza barely heard it. All she could think about was what she had seen, the curse wrapped around his wolf, the memory of his mother performing blood magic. What had been done to him? And could she undo it before it killed him? The queen's chambers had been connected to the king's by a private door that had not been opened in 8 years. Tonight, it stood ajar. Carenza sat on the edge of her bed, her heart racing. The blind attendants Thandor had assigned her, wolves who could not see her marks, had bathed her in lavender water and dressed her in a nightgown of thin white silk. Then they had left her alone, to wait. The consummation. It had been part of the contract, though Thandor had been clinical about it. "An heir is necessary. We need not make the process unpleasant, but it must occur." Unpleasant. As though coupling with him would be a chore. She had never been touched by a man, never been kissed properly. The closest she had come to intimacy was the stable boy, who had held her hand once when she was 15, before her father caught them and had the boy sent to the northern mines. Now she was expected to share a bed with the Alpha King, a man she had known for 3 days, a man whose wolf was dying from a curse she did not understand. The connecting door swung fully open. Thandor stood in the doorway, and Carence's breath abandoned her entirely. He had shed his formal clothing. He wore only loose trousers that hung low on his hips, his chest and feet bare. In the candlelight she could see the hard ridges of muscle across his stomach, the breadth of his shoulders, the thin scars that mapped his skin like a warrior's history. but it was his expression that made her heart clench. He looked almost nervous, uncertain, so different from the cold, commanding king she had seen in public. "May I enter?" he asked. "It is your castle, your majesty. You do not need permission." "In these chambers I do." He remained in the doorway. "You are my queen. Your space is yours. I will not enter unless you wish it." The courtesy was so unexpected that tears pricked her eyes. "Please," she whispered, "enter." He crossed to her slowly, each step deliberate, giving her time to change her mind. When he reached the bed, he lowered himself to sit beside her, careful to leave space between them. "I want you to know something," he said quietly. "What happens tonight, and every night after, will only ever be what you choose. If you wish me to leave, I will leave. If you wish me to stay but not touch you, I will do that instead. Your comfort matters more than airs." Carenza stared at him. "But you said—" "I know what I said. I was trying to make this feel transactional, easier, but I find I cannot." He looked away, his jaw tight. "You saved Zephyros without hesitation. You exposed your secret to save a creature that was not even yours. I will not repay that kindness by taking anything you do not freely give." The warmth she had been fighting flooded through her. "Your Majesty." "Thandor." His eyes met hers. "When we are alone, I am just Thandor." "Thandor." The name felt intimate on her tongue. "I am not afraid of you." "You should be. Everyone else is?" "Then everyone else has not seen you kneel." She reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away. Her fingers brushed his cheek, the same cheek she had touched in the cathedral. "They have not seen you choose a servant over tradition. They have not seen you offer kindness when cruelty would have been easier." His eyes closed at her touch. His breath shuddered. "Your hands are warm," he said roughly. I had forgotten what warmth felt like. His skin was cool beneath her palm. Not unpleasantly cold, but noticeably cooler than any wolf should be. Alphas burned hot. Everyone knew this, but Thandor felt like autumn fading into winter. "You are cold," she observed. "Not just cool. Genuinely cold." "Why?" He was silent for a long moment. Then, "A condition I have lived with for many years. It grows worse over time." "Is it connected to your wolf? To what you told me before?" His hand covered hers, pressing her palm more firmly against his cheek. He did not answer. He did not need to. "Let me help you," Carenza whispered. "Let me try to heal whatever is wrong." "No." The word was sharp. "Not yet. Perhaps not ever. There are things you do not understand, Carenza. Things I cannot explain yet." "Then what can I give you? Tonight?" His eyes opened. In the candlelight they were darker than usual, the amber deepened to molten bronze. His gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. "Whatever you wish to give. Nothing more." She kissed him. The decision was impulsive, born of gratitude and curiosity and something deeper she refused to name. She pressed her lips to his, clumsy and uncertain, and felt him freeze beneath her touch. Then his hand slid into her hair, cradling the back of her head, and he kissed her back. His lips were cool but impossibly soft. He kissed her like she was precious, like she might shatter if he pressed too hard. When her mouth opened beneath his, he deepened the kiss slowly, tasting her with patient thoroughness that made her head spin. His hands found her waist through the thin silk, spanning her ribs, his thumbs tracing idle patterns that sent sparks cascading down her spine. When she shivered, he pulled back. "Too much?" "Not enough." Something blazed in his eyes. Want. Raw and undisguised. He laid her back against the pillows with careful hands, hovering above her, his weight braced on his forearms. The coolness of his body against her warmth created sensations she had never imagined. contrast, friction, need. "Tell me if you want me to stop," he murmured against her throat. "Promise me." "I promise." He worshipped her slowly. His mouth traced her collarbone, the hollow of her throat, the curve of her shoulder. Every kiss was deliberate. Every touch designed to give pleasure rather than take it. And through it all, she felt the wrongness in him. Every time her hands pressed against his bare skin, she sensed the darkness coiled around his wolf. It pulsed in time with his heartbeat, a parasite feeding on his life force. His wolf was not just dying, it was being devoured from within. She wanted to heal him. Her gift screamed at her to pour silver light into his veins and burn the darkness away. But she remembered his warning. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. So she focused on the pleasure instead. She learned the places that made him groan, discovered that scraping her nails down his back made him shudder, found that whispering his name against his ear undid his careful control entirely. When they finally came together, the connection was overwhelming. She felt everything. His loneliness, vast as the frozen ocean she had sensed in his wolf. His guilt, thick and choking, centered on something he had done or failed to do. His desperate, terrified hope that she might be the answer to a question he had never voiced aloud. And beneath it all, threaded through every emotion, a warmth he did not recognize because he had not felt it in so long. Affection, growing despite his vow, growing toward her. They lay tangled together afterward, their breathing ragged, his arm heavy across her waist. "Stay," Carenza whispered. "Please stay tonight." "I should not." "Why?" He was silent. His fingers traced idle patterns on her hip, but his body was rigid with tension. "Because if I stay," he said finally, his voice barely audible, "I will want to stay every night. And that would be dangerous. For both of us." Before she could ask what he meant, he pulled away. She heard him dressing in the darkness. The connecting door opened and closed, and Carenza lay alone, more confused than ever, her body still humming with pleasure while her mind raced with questions. What was he hiding? What was the curse consuming his wolf? And why was he so terrified of wanting her? He returned the next night, and the night after that, and every night for 2 weeks, always arriving after sunset, always leaving before dawn. Each time he gave her pleasure that made her gasp and sob and cling to him. Each time he held himself apart emotionally, answering her questions with half-truths and deflections. But each time he stayed a little longer. On the 5th night, he fell asleep beside her, his arm wrapped around her waist, his face buried against her neck. Carenza lay awake for hours, studying the sharp lines of his profile, feeling the unnatural coolness of his skin against her warmth. She learned to compensate for his temperature. Extra blankets on the bed. Fires built higher than necessary. Warming stones tucked beneath the sheets before he arrived. He never mentioned these accommodations. But she saw the flicker of something in his eyes when he realized what she had done. Surprise, perhaps. Or gratitude. On the 8th night, he did not come to her bed directly. Instead, he sat by the fire, staring into the flames, his expression haunted. "Something happened today," Carenza said, settling into the chair beside him. She had learned not to push him. He spoke when he was ready or not at all. A long silence stretched between them. "The council met," he said finally. "They want me to designate an heir from among my cousins, since I have no children of my own. But we have only been married 2 weeks. There is time yet for children. They do not believe I will live long enough to sire them." The words hung in the air, cold and brutal. "What do they know?" Carenza whispered. "They know I am dying." His voice was flat. "They have known for years. They simply pretend otherwise because the alternative is chaos. Thandor. My mother cursed me." The confession came out rough, as though each word cost him. When I was 12 years old, she performed a blood ritual that bound my wolf's life force to my emotions, specifically, to one emotion. Carenza waited, barely breathing. Love. His laugh was bitter. If I ever fall in love, truly and completely, my wolf will die. And so will I. The world tilted. Carenza gripped the arms of her chair to steady herself. That is why you made me promise not to expect affection. Why you leave before morning. Why I keep distance between us. Yes. He turned to look at her, and his eyes were haunted. My mother believed she was protecting me. Protecting the kingdom. She thought that if I could not love, I could not be manipulated by love, that I would be a stronger king, a more ruthless ruler. But the curse is killing you anyway. Slowly, my wolf has been fading since the ritual. Each year I grow colder. Each year I feel less. My healers estimate I have 5 years remaining, perhaps fewer. 5 years. He had 5 years to live, and he had spent 3 days of them marrying a stranger to save her life. Why me? The question burst out of her. Why save a soulbinder you did not know? Why risk marriage when any attachment might accelerate your death? Thandor rose from his chair. He paced to the window, his back to her, his shoulders rigid. Because when I saw you heal Zephyros, I felt something I had not felt in 19 years. His voice was barely audible. Hope. Hope for what? That you might be able to break the curse. Carenza's heart stopped. You think my gift? Soulbinders do not merely heal wolves. They heal the connection between wolf and human. They mend bonds that have been damaged or severed. He turned, and his expression was raw with desperation. My mother's curse damaged the bond between my wolf and myself. It trapped us in a slow death. If anyone can undo that damage, it would be someone with your bloodline. But you told me not to try. You said perhaps not ever. Because I am a coward. He crossed to her, dropping to his knees before her chair. His hands found hers, his grip almost painful. Because if you try and fail, I will know there is truly no hope. I will know I am condemned. His voice cracked. And because if you try and succeed, I might live. I might actually live. And then I would have no excuse to keep my distance from you. Carenza stared down at him, this powerful king kneeling before her for the second time. You are afraid of living? She breathed. I am afraid of loving. His eyes met hers, amber depths swirling with emotion. I have spent 19 years teaching myself not to feel, not to want, not to care, and in 2 weeks, you have dismantled every wall I built. Thandor, I think about you constantly. The words poured out of him as though a dam had broken. I count the hours until I can return to your chambers. I dream about your warmth, your voice, and the way you look at me without fear or contempt. I tell myself it means nothing that I feel nothing, but I am lying. I know I am lying. Tears slipped down Carenza's cheeks. Then let me try to break the curse. If you try and I survive, he swallowed hard. If I survive and fall in love with you, and then you discover that you cannot love me back, I am already falling. The confession escaped before she could stop it. Thandor went utterly still. I know it is too soon, she continued, her voice shaking. I know we barely know each other. But you have shown me more kindness in 2 weeks than I received in 23 years. You knelt before the entire court to protect me. You give me pleasure every night and ask nothing in return. You are cold on the outside, but everything you do burns with warmth. She pulled her hands free and cupped his face. Let me save you. Please. Let me try. Something broke behind his eyes. His walls crumbled. For one perfect moment she saw him completely, terrified, hopeful, longing, lost. Then he kissed her. This kiss was different from all the others. desperate, raw. His mouth devoured hers as though he were drowning and she was air. His hands tangled in her hair, her waist, everywhere he could reach. "Tomorrow," he gasped against her lips. "Tomorrow we try. But tonight, let me have you. Let me pretend, just for one night, that I am allowed to feel this." Carenza answered with her body instead of words. They made love with fierce urgency, then tender slowness, then urgency again. She lost count of the times he brought her to completion. She lost track of the hours passing. When dawn began to lighten the windows, he did not leave. He pulled her against his chest, wrapped the blankets around them both, and held her as though he never intended to let go. "I should warn you," he murmured against her hair. "Warn me of what?" "My mother's curse was not the only secret in this castle." His arm tightened around her. "There are people who do not want me to live. People who have been waiting for me to die so they can claim the throne. Your cousins? Among others. If they discover you might be able to save me." He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Carenza pressed closer to him, feeling the unnatural coolness of his skin, the faint tremor in his muscles. "Then we will not let them discover it. Not until it is done." "You make it sound simple." "Simple does not mean easy." She tilted her head to meet his eyes. "But you are worth fighting for, Thandor. Whatever the risk." Something shifted in his expression, something she had never seen before. Tenderness, true tenderness, unguarded and vulnerable. "Carenza," he breathed, and the way he said her name made her heart ache. Whatever he intended to say next was cut off by a violent knock at the door. "Your Majesty!" A guard's voice, frantic. "Your Majesty, come quickly. There has been an attack. Lord Aldrich Vance has been murdered." Carenza's blood turned to ice. Her father was dead. And somehow she knew with terrible certainty she would be blamed. The great hall was in chaos when they arrived. Carenza clutched Thandor's arm as guards parted before them. Her father's body lay in the center of the room, surrounded by a ring of horrified nobles. Even from a distance she could see the burns, silver burns, the same distinctive marks her gift left when she healed. Except these were not healing marks. These were wounds, charred and terrible, carved into her father's chest in patterns that looked almost like writing. "Soulbinder magic," someone whispered. Only a soulbinder could do this. Every eye in the room turned to Carenza. "The Queen was with me all night," Thandor said, his voice cutting through the whispers like a blade. "She could not have done this." "With respect, Your Majesty." A man stepped forward, his expression carefully neutral, but his eyes gleaming with something darker. "How can you be certain? Soulbinders are known to manipulate wolves. Perhaps she made you believe she was present while her spirit wandered elsewhere." Carenza recognized him. Lord Heron Blackwood, Thandor's eldest cousin and next in line for the throne should Thandor die without heirs. "That is not how my gift works," Carenza said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "I heal, I do not kill." "Your mother killed," Heron replied smoothly. "The records are clear. She murdered 3 wolves before she was executed." "My mother was innocent. She was framed by—" "By whom? Your father?" Heron gestured to the burned corpse. "The same father who now lies dead, killed by the very magic you claim to possess?" The trap was elegant. Carenza saw it clearly now. Someone had murdered her father using magic designed to mimic soulbinder work. Someone who wanted her accused, arrested, executed. Someone who wanted Thandor to lose his only hope of breaking the curse. "Enough." Thandor's voice was winter itself. "My queen is innocent. I will hear no more accusations without evidence." "Then permit an investigation, Your Majesty." Heron's smile was poison wrapped in silk. "Surely you would not obstruct justice for your wife's sake. Surely the crown's integrity means more than one woman's life." The challenge hung in the air. If Thandor refused, he would appear compromised. If he agreed, Carenza would be subjected to interrogations designed to condemn her. "I agree to the investigation," Carenza said before Thandor could respond. "I have nothing to hide." Thandor's hand tightened on her arm. "Carenza, if I run from this, I prove their suspicions correct." She met his eyes, willing him to understand. "Let them investigate. Let them find the truth. I trust you to protect me." Something flickered in his expression. Pride, perhaps. Or fear. "Very well." He turned to the assembly. "Lord Blackwood will lead the investigation. But the Queen remains in her chambers, guarded by my personal wolves. No one speaks to her without my presence. No one touches her without my permission." Heron's smile faltered slightly. He had expected Thandor to resist entirely. A reasonable investigation was harder to corrupt. "As you wish, Your Majesty." The next 3 days were agony. Carenza remained confined to her chambers while investigators combed through her father's estate, interviewed servants, examined the body. Thandor visited each evening, his expression growing grimmer with each passing night. "They are building a case," he told her on the 3rd night. "Heron has found witnesses who claim they saw silver light near your father's manor. He has testimony from servants who say you threatened Aldrich at your wedding." "I never threatened him. He struck me. I simply did not cower." "I know." Thandor paced before the fire, his movements tight with frustration. "But truth matters less than perception. Heron has wanted my throne since we were boys. He sees this as his opportunity." "Then we must move faster." Carenza rose from her chair, crossing to him. "Let me try to break the curse tonight. If I succeed, if you live, Heron loses his leverage. He cannot claim the throne if you have decades of rule ahead of you." Thandor stopped pacing. His eyes met hers, and she saw the war within him, hope battling terror. "The curse has safeguards," he said quietly. "My mother designed it to resist tampering. If you try and fail, the curse could accelerate. I could die within hours instead of years. And if I do nothing, Heron will have me executed. You will lose your hope regardless, and then you will die anyway." She took his hands. "Let me try. Please." He was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded once. "How do we begin?" Carenza guided him to the bed. She had him remove his shirt, exposing the broad expanse of his chest. In the candlelight, she could see what she had felt during their intimate moments. Faint, silver-blue lines tracing beneath his skin, concentrated around his heart. The visible evidence of the curse consuming him. "Lie down," she instructed. "Try to remain calm. I need to connect with your wolf." Thandor obeyed, stretching out on the mattress, his amber eyes fixed on her face. He looked vulnerable like this, stripped of his royal armor, trusting her completely. Carenza climbed onto the bed beside him. She placed her palms flat against his chest, directly over his heart. The connection snapped into place immediately. She plunged into the frozen ocean of his wolf, gasping at the cold that enveloped her consciousness. The darkness she had sensed before was everywhere now. Thick black tendrils wrapped around his wolf's essence, squeezing, draining, and killing. She summoned her silver light and pushed it outward. The curse fought back. Pain exploded through her, white-hot and blinding. She heard herself scream, heard Thandor shouting her name, but she could not stop. She pushed harder, pouring every ounce of her gift into breaking the darkness. A voice whispered through the connection, a woman's voice, ancient and cold. "You cannot break what was willingly given. The curse was accepted. The price was paid. Only equal sacrifice can undo what was done." Equal sacrifice. What did that mean? The darkness surged, slamming into her consciousness with brutal force. Carenza felt herself being pushed out, expelled from the connection. Her silver light flickered and died. She collapsed beside Thandor, gasping for breath, her entire body trembling. "Carenza!" His hands found her face, her shoulders, checking for injury. What happened? Are you hurt? I could not break it. Tears streamed down her cheeks. The curse requires equal sacrifice. I do not know what that means. I do not know how to... A violent knock interrupted her. Your Majesty. A guard's voice, urgent with fear. Lord Blackwood has concluded his investigation. He demands the Queen's immediate arrest. He says he has proof she murdered not only her father but the previous Queen as well. Carence's blood turned to ice. The previous Queen, Thandor's mother. The woman who had cast the curse. That is impossible, Thandor snarled. My mother died 8 years ago. Carenca was 15 and living in her father's estate. Lord Blackwood claims to have evidence of soulbinder magic at the scene of Queen Valeth's death. He says the new queen's mother performed the killing, and when the elder soulbinder was executed, the daughter inherited her connection to the murder. Inherited her connection. Carence's mind raced. That was not how soulbinder magic worked. But Heron was not trying to prove actual guilt. He was trying to create enough doubt to justify execution. Bar the door, Thandor commanded. No one enters. Your Majesty, the council is convening. If you do not appear... I said bar the door. The guard fell silent. Heavy footsteps retreated. Thandor turned to Carenca, his expression wild with desperation. There must be something. Some way to prove your innocence? To break the curse? To stop Heron? There is. Carenca's voice was steady despite the terror coursing through her. Malis told me something before the wedding. She said our mother could do more than heal wolves. She could see their souls. See everything they were hiding. What does that mean? It means if I can access that part of my gift, I might be able to see the truth. See who really killed my father. See who killed your mother. She swallowed hard. See everything Heron is hiding. You would have to get close to him. Touch him. Yes. He would never permit it. The moment you reveal you can see truth in wolves, he will know you are a threat. He will kill you before you can speak. Then I do it publicly. Before the entire council. Before witnesses he cannot silence. Thandor stared at her, his amber eyes blazing. That would require you to reveal the full extent of your power, to become even more of a target than you already are. I am already condemned. This way, at least I take Heron down with me. No. His voice cracked. I will not let you sacrifice yourself. And I will not let you die. She cupped his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. We save each other, Thandor. Both of us or neither. That is the only acceptable outcome. For a long moment he simply looked at her. Then he pulled her into his arms and held her as though the world was ending. Perhaps it was. The council chamber was packed when Carenca entered, her wrists bound in ceremonial chains that marked her as accused, but not yet condemned. Thandor walked beside her, his expression carved from stone, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Lord Heron Blackwood stood at the center of the room, surrounded by nobles who had clearly already chosen their side. His smile was triumphant. The accused is present, he announced. Let the evidence be heard. What followed was a masterwork of manipulation. Heron produced witnesses who claimed to have seen Carenca's silver light at her father's estate the night of the murder. He presented documents suggesting the Vance family had long harbored forbidden magic. He wove a narrative that painted Carenca as a calculating monster who had seduced the king to gain power, murdered her own father to silence his objections, and planned to kill Thandor himself once she produced an heir. Through it all, Carenca remained silent, waiting. And finally, Heron declared, his voice ringing with false solemnity, we have discovered evidence that the previous queen, Her Majesty Valeth, was also murdered by soulbinder magic. The same distinctive burns found on Lord Vance's body were present on Queen Valeth's remains. The elder soulbinder, the accused's mother, performed that killing. And the daughter has inherited her murderous nature. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Carenza saw nobles nodding, their expressions hardening against her. "I request permission to speak," she said clearly. Heron's smile flickered. "The accused will have opportunity to speak in her defense after—" "I request permission to speak now, before this council makes a decision based on fabricated evidence." Silence fell, every eye fixed on her. "The accused may speak," Thandor said, his voice brooking no argument. Carenza stepped forward, her chains clinking softly. "Lord Blackwood claims my mother killed Queen Vayleth. He claims I killed my father. He claims soulbinder magic leaves distinctive burns that prove our guilt." She paused, letting the words settle. "But Lord Blackwood has never seen true soulbinder magic. He does not know what our gift actually does. He has based his entire case on assumptions and fabrications." "I have witnesses," Heron began. "You have liars." Carenza's voice cut through his protest. "Paid liars who will say whatever you tell them to say. But I have something better than witnesses. I have truth." She turned to face the assembly, her silver marks beginning to glow beneath her sleeves. "My mother could see souls. She could look into a wolf's eyes and see every secret they had ever hidden, every lie they had ever told, and every crime they had ever committed. It was this gift that made her dangerous. This gift that my father feared. This gift that got her killed." Heron's expression shifted, the first flicker of real fear. "I inherited that gift," Carenza continued. "I can see truth in wolves, and I am willing to demonstrate it now, before this council, on any wolf present." The chamber erupted. Nobles shouted objections, demanded clarification, expressed disbelief. Through it all, Heron Blackwood stood frozen, his face pale. "Choose someone," Carenza said, her eyes fixed on him. "Choose any wolf in this room. I will tell you their deepest secret. Then you will know my gift is real." "This is a trick," Heron snarled. "She means to manipulate us." "Then volunteer yourself, Lord Blackwood." Thandor's voice was silk over steel. "If her gift is false, you have nothing to fear. Let her touch you. Let her try to see your secrets. When she fails, her credibility will be destroyed and your case will be proven." The trap was elegant. If Heron refused, he appeared guilty. If he accepted, Carenza would see everything. "Very well." Heron straightened his shoulders, forcing confidence into his expression. "Touch me, Soulbinder. Show us your parlor tricks." Carenza crossed to him slowly, her heart pounding. She had never consciously accessed this aspect of her gift. She was gambling everything on instinct and desperation. She reached out and pressed her palm against Heron's cheek. The connection was different from healing. Instead of sensing his wolf's body, she sensed its essence. Memories flooded through her, images and emotions that were not her own. She saw Heron as a boy, jealous of his younger cousin who would inherit the throne. She saw him as a young man, searching for ways to remove Thandor from power. She saw him discovering the truth about Queen Vayleth's curse, learning that Thandor was slowly dying. She saw him deciding to wait, to let the curse do its work. And she saw him 3 days ago, standing in her father's study, his hands glowing with stolen magic. "You killed my father." The words came out flat, certain. "You used a magical artifact to mimic soulbinder burns. You wanted to frame me, have me executed, and destroy Thandor's hope of breaking his curse." Heron jerked away from her touch, but it was too late. "You knew about the curse," she continued, her voice rising. "You have known for years that Thandor was dying. You have been waiting for him to weaken enough for you to seize power. But when he married me, when you realized I might be able to save him, you panicked. This is lies. You also killed Queen Vayleth." The chamber went deathly silent. She was going to undo the curse herself. She regretted what she had done to her son. She had found a way to reverse the ritual, but it required her death. a willing sacrifice. Carence's voice broke. She was going to die to save Thandor. But you killed her first, before she could complete the reversal. You murdered her and made it look like soulbinder magic, so that when the truth eventually emerged, my bloodline would be blamed. Heron's face contorted with rage. You cannot prove any of this. I just did. Carenza turned to the assembly. Every noble here felt the truth in my words. Every wolf in this room knows I am not lying. That is what my gift does. I see truth, and when I speak it, you feel it. She was right. She could see it in their faces, the dawning horror, the shifting loyalties. They believed her because something in her gift made belief impossible to resist. Heron's hand went to his sword. Guards! Thandor's command rang out. Seize Lord Blackwood. He is under arrest for the murder of Queen Valeth and Lord Aldrich Vance. Heron drew his blade, but he was surrounded before he could strike. Guards forced him to his knees, wrenching the sword from his grip. This is not over, Heron spat, his eyes fixed on Carenza with pure hatred. You may have won today, but the curse remains. Your precious king will still die. And when he does, my allies will ensure you burn just as your mother did. Thandor stepped forward, his expression terrifying in its coldness. Take him to the dungeons. I will deal with him personally. As the guards dragged Heron away, Carenza swayed on her feet. The exertion of using her gift so completely had drained her. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision. Strong arms caught her before she fell. I have you, Thandor murmured against her hair. I have you. But even as relief flooded through her, Heron's words echoed in her mind. The curse remains. Your precious king will still die. She had won this battle, but the war was far from over. 3 days after Heron's arrest, Carenza stood before Queen Valeth's private journals, her hands trembling. Thandor had given her access to his mother's sealed chambers, spaces that had been locked since her death 8 years ago. Dust coated every surface, cobwebs draped the furniture. But the journals remained intact, protected by preservation magic. And within them, Carenza had found the answer. The curse can only be broken by equal sacrifice, Valeth had written in her final entry. A life willingly given in love. I intended to give my own life to free my son, but I fear I will not survive long enough to complete the ritual. If you are reading this, know that the reversal requires 3 things. The blood of the caster, which I have preserved in the crystal vial beneath my bed. The touch of a soulbinder, to bridge the gap between curse and cure, and the willing sacrifice of someone who loves the cursed with their whole heart. The sacrifice need not be death. It need only be something of equal value to the one who gives it. For me, that would have been my magic itself. I would have surrendered my gift to save my son. For another, the sacrifice might be different. But it must be given freely, without hesitation, without regret. Only pure love can fuel such a sacrifice. Only pure love can break a curse born of pure fear. Carenza closed the journal. She understood now. She found Thandor in his study, staring out the window at the winter garden. Snow had begun to fall, the first of the season, coating the world in white. He turned when she entered, and she saw the shadows beneath his eyes, the pallor of his skin. The confrontation with Heron had cost him. The curse was accelerating. I found it, she said simply. I found how to break the curse. Hope flared in his eyes, quickly tempered by caution. How? She told him everything. The blood, the touch, the sacrifice. What would you sacrifice? He asked quietly. What do you have that equals a life? Carenza had thought about this for 3 days. She had considered every possibility, weighed every option, and she had arrived at only one answer. My gift, she said. I will sacrifice my soulbinder magic. Thandor's expression shifted. Carenza, no. Your gift is part of you. Without it? Without it, I will be an ordinary wolf. I will live an ordinary life. She crossed to him, taking his hands. But I will live that life with you, watching you grow old, raising children together, being your queen in truth, not just in name. You saved Zephyros with that gift. You saved yourself. You exposed Heron. How can you surrender something so precious? Because you are more precious. She lifted his hand to her lips, kissing his cold fingers. Because I love you, Thandor. Not your crown, not your protection, not what you can give me. I love you. The man who kneels before servants, who asks permission to enter his own wife's chambers, who burns with warmth despite being made of ice. Tears slipped down his cheeks. She had never seen him cry. I love you too, he whispered. I have been fighting it, terrified that admitting it would accelerate my death. But I cannot fight anymore. I love you, Carenza. More than my kingdom, more than my life. She kissed him then, soft and sweet, tasting salt on his lips. Then let me save you. They performed the ritual that night. Carenza retrieved the crystal vial from beneath Valeth's bed. She drew the blood circle on the floor of Thandor's chambers exactly as the journal described, and she called upon every ounce of power her soulbinder gift possessed. The connection was immediate and overwhelming. She plunged into Thandor's wolf, deeper than she had ever gone before. The darkness was waiting, massive and hungry, but she did not fight it this time. Instead, she wrapped her silver light around it and pulled. Pain exploded through her, worse than before, worse than anything she had ever experienced. She felt her gift being torn from her essence, ripped away strand by strand. She heard herself screaming but could not stop. Do you give this willingly? Valeth's voice whispered through the connection. Without hesitation? Without regret? Yes, Carenza gasped. Yes, I give it willingly. Take it. Take everything. Just save him. Then it is done. Silver light erupted from her hands, brighter than the sun, pouring into Thandor's chest. The darkness shrieked, a terrible sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of the castle. It fought, clawed, struggled to maintain its grip. But love was stronger than fear. The curse shattered. Carenza felt it break apart, felt the darkness dissolve into nothing, felt warmth flood through Thandor's wolf for the first time in 19 years. His body arched off the bed, a cry torn from his throat. The silver-blue lines beneath his skin flared once, brilliantly bright, then faded to nothing. And then, silence. Carenza collapsed beside him, utterly spent. Her hands were bare of silver marks. Her connection to the wolf world was gone, severed cleanly, permanently. She had given everything, but Thandor was breathing, warm, alive. His eyes opened and she gasped. They were no longer cold amber. They blazed with golden warmth, the color of summer sunlight. Carenza. His voice was different too, richer, fuller. He pulled her into his arms and his skin was warm against hers. Truly warm. I can feel everything. I can feel you. I can feel my wolf. I can feel... His voice broke. I can feel love. She wept against his chest. Joy and grief mingled together. Joy for his salvation. Grief for what she had lost. But when he tilted her face up and kissed her, she knew she would make the same choice 1,000 times over. Some sacrifices were worth everything. 1 year later, Carenza stood in the royal nursery, watching her daughter sleep. Astrith Valeth Valdros had been born in the spring, when the gardens were exploding with color and the kingdom was celebrating its first year of true peace. She had her father's golden eyes and her mother's dark hair, and she was the most beautiful thing Carenza had ever seen. She has your stubbornness, Thandor said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. His warmth enveloped her, a sensation she would never take for granted. She has your appetite, Carenza countered. The wet nurse is exhausted. He laughed, the sound full and rich. He laughed often now, smiled easily, touched her constantly. The cold, distant king was gone forever, replaced by a man who felt everything deeply and expressed it without fear. Heron Blackwood had been executed 3 months after his arrest, found guilty of 2 counts of murder and conspiracy against the crown. His allies had scattered, some fleeing to distant kingdoms, others throwing themselves on Thandor's mercy. The throne was secure. Maelys had taken their father's seat on the minor council, working to restore the Vance name through honest service rather than political manipulation. She and Carenza were not close, might never be close, but they had found a fragile peace, and Carenza herself had discovered that losing her gift was not the end she had feared. She could no longer heal wolves or see their secrets. But she had gained something else, a freedom she had never known. For the first time in her life, she was not hiding, not afraid, not marked by power that made others fear her. She was simply Carenza, queen, wife, mother, loved. "The council is waiting," Thandor murmured against her hair. "The new Soulbinder Academy proposal." Carenza smiled. It had been her idea. A place where wolves with forbidden gifts could learn to control their powers safely, where children like she had been would not have to hide in fear. Thandor had championed it before the council, arguing with a passion that surprised even his oldest advisors. Let them wait 5 more minutes. She turned in his arms, rising on her toes to kiss him. "I am enjoying this." He deepened the kiss, and warmth flooded through her, familiar and perfect. When they finally pulled apart, his golden eyes were soft with love. "I never thanked you properly." "You thank me every day." "Not enough." He pressed his forehead to hers. "You saved me, Carenza. Not just from the curse, but from the empty existence I had accepted as my fate. You gave me back my life, my heart, my ability to love. There are not enough words in any language to express what that means." Tears pricked her eyes. "You saved me too. You gave me safety when I had only known fear. You gave me dignity when I had only known shame. You chose me when anyone else would have looked away. Then we saved each other." "We saved each other," she agreed. In the crib beside them, Astrith stirred, making small sounds that would soon become demands. Carenza laughed, reaching down to lift her daughter into her arms. "Come, little princess, your parents have a kingdom to run." They walked together through the sunlit corridors of the palace, their daughter between them, their wolves singing in quiet harmony. Behind them, the shadows of the past faded into nothing. Ahead, only light remained.